Hello, and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins, your on air producer. All week long, we have had the honor of talking with our Colorado Business Roundtable partners. And before I introduce my guest today, I'd like to ask our audience to go and please check out our page at cobrt.com. Sign up for our newsletter, check out our radio page while you're there, and also be sure to check out our events page. We've just announced our View from the Top event taking place on August 20th. So be sure to check out information on that. And with me today, I have Becky Takeda-Tinker. She is the president of CSU Global. How are you, Becky?
Great. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Yes, we're very excited. We've been partners with you guys for a long time. And one of the big things that we focus on here at the Colorado Business Roundtable is workforce development. And you guys are on top of it when it comes to workforce development, all across the board, working with other schools, working with industry. But before we get into that part of things, let's hear a little bit about your background and learn about you and how you ended up at CSU Global.
Right. So about 2007, 2008, my husband and I were looking around to figure out where we were going to finally set down roots, and we picked Colorado. And so we moved in 2008 and just really enjoy the lifestyle, the hiking, the biking, the golf. We're avid outdoors people. So we are super happy to be here. It's certainly changed a lot in a decade, but enjoying it nonetheless. And so that is how we ended up here. My background's actually been in business, private equity. And part of the move was that I would settle down and do some part-time work, maybe teach at a community college. So I did some of that, but I got introduced to CSU Global, who needed somebody from a practitioner's perspective with a PhD to work on curriculum that would actually address workforce needs. And my passion, and one of the reasons I even went back to get my PhD so that I could be in education, was coming from the business side, that the employees we were getting, and the ones particularly out of college, did not have the skill set that we needed to actually be high functioning and to have an impact on the businesses that we were running, owning, selling off, merging. And so I thought, higher ed has such great potential to really step up in this area, particularly as fast as the world is going now. Technology is not making it any easier when we think about speed of change. And so the opportunity to be able to participate in CSU Global's evolution, at that time it hadn't even opened, but to have an impact on the curriculum was really exciting for me. And so that is how I got involved originally. And then we launched the university in September of 2008. And then I left and had done what I needed to do, and by January of 2009. And then it had been funded through a $12 million loan through the CSU system, and that money had been spent, and of course we're right there in the middle of the deep recession. So it did not look like the board was going to be able to refund it, to give it more cash, and so I did step back in to do a turnaround, just like I'd done in business, but to really apply it in an area that I believe could really make a difference when you consider the CSU Global mission of workplace success through higher education for its non-traditional adult, and now we're calling them modern learners a decade later. So that is how I've ended up where I've been. I became officially the president of the institution in June of 2010. So have been going strong ever since.
Oh, lovely. That's a great background. I love that, right? It's very nice to see somebody coming from the business world and deciding that they need to turn around and look at education instead, right?
Yeah, there is, and as critical as I may have been with higher ed and what the outcomes were, there's no other population that really deeply cares and is absolutely passionate about student learning than educators. However, there's got to be some intersection with what the needs are of industry. And so to be able to address both of them and bring both worlds together to help industry find qualified workers and to help higher education also have a path and an impact on the future of our world is really important to me. And so it is fabulous and just an amazing opportunity for me to be able to work in an area that I so believe in and understand both worlds. And I do so much work trying to help industry understand the great benefits that higher ed can bring. There's been a lot of higher ed bashing as of late, and but I also know that the intentionality that goes behind well thought out, high quality education and what that benefit could be for business and industry if we can educate their employees, students for their future employees, that we can actually help American industry move itself forward in a very globally competitive way. We know right now that looking 2020, 65% or over 65% of jobs will require a post-secondary education. So the demand for education is not going away, but how does higher education move quickly and change rapidly at the same pace as a business is? And that pace is not slowing down. And so Global itself is working on all sorts of new models in order to keep up with that change of pace in a way that becomes relevant and stays relevant to all the students that we serve.
Yeah, and you guys have some great programs that you've implemented here along the way. But before I ask about those specifically, I want to reiterate for our audience here the difference between CSU and CSU Global, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah, if you don't mind giving the nuances behind that.
Great, great. Thank you for asking about that. So, this CSU System Board of Governors oversees three institutions: CSU in Fort Collins, CSU in Pueblo, and then CSU Global. All three institutions have their own separate accreditation through the Higher Learning Commission, and therefore we are allowed to have our own governing structures. So we are separate. I think the other factor is that CSU Global is the first institution in Colorado, public institution, to have received its independent accreditation in 43 years. And that was honestly back almost a decade ago now.
Yeah.
So we do not receive state funds. When we think about the climate of Colorado and the financial state, although healthy, the priority for the same pot of money is also shared with corrections, Medicare, and K through 12, which is, of course, a big area for growth. And so CSU Global was allowed to be created under the understanding that it would not be able to tap into those state funds. And so when we think about its creation back in 2007 with the loan of $12 million, CSU Global has to earn its way out. We have since, of course, paid back that loan with interest. And we must be absolutely engaged and understand our students, because those, in a way, are our customers, and we depend solely on tuition revenue in order to be able to do the great work that we do. The nonprofit status makes sure that we intentionally drive the outcomes of a state nonprofit institution, that we will do the great work that we do, very high quality, because we're part of the system. We absolutely must. We've got everybody always looking at what we're doing. That it is affordable, that we serve over 40% of our students are first in their family to go to college. 28% are from underserved populations. And so this affordability component is extremely important to us. And that it's career relevant. When we think about our students, we are fully online. And therefore, the average age is 35, and they are working mostly at some sort of position, job, part-time, full-time. But because we're asynchronous online, they're able to do that. Our highest usage of all of our technologies is at 10 o'clock on weekdays and all day Sunday and part of and Saturday. But we see the highest utilization between 10 and 2. So 10 p.m. at night to 2 in the morning. Mm-hmm. Our students are hard at work after having taken care of their families, maybe possibly worked all day, served in their communities, and now they've got to continue to upskill. And the need for lifelong learning is only going to be more and more important. And so the format and being really premier and exceptional at the way that we're able to engage students in an online environment, completely virtual, that takes a lot of thought and work, and really ensures that we are at the top of our game, because without state funds, we have to be really good at what we do, or we will cease to exist. Possibly,
Yes.
I look at Fort Collins, I look at Pueblo, would Global cease to exist? I don't know, but we do not receive state funds. They do. And so we absolutely embrace that. Really is part of our culture, that we are super efficient and effective with what money we do earn, and that we put the student in the center of everything we do. We teach 12 months a year. We never get a break. They are 8-week sessions, but we want to be there when the students are ready to learn and when they have time. If you're a mom and you're working and you're trying to go to school and you've got to finish out, through May, but you want to get right back there in June, or you want to take June off because you need to go on vacation with your family, can we get you back in July? We are always working to make sure that the students, when they have time to go to school, that we're right there. We're ready. We will teach. We teach every class every term. There is no waiting. Yeah, I know that you mentioned you had recently finished up some courses. We don't have an overcapacity situation where you're locked out. We will open up a section, even if it's one student and one instructor. What we don't want is when you're ready to go that suddenly we can't serve you. We understand for you to be able to get to your goals, whether it's a certificate program or a degree program, that we help you keep moving and not let you maybe sit on the sidelines too long. Otherwise, you fill that time with so many other things that are important in your life, and you're not able to get to those goals. And that is not what we're here to do. We care very deeply that if a student starts with us, that they actually finish. Otherwise, we know from our data, mostly our students don't go anywhere if they've dropped out. And so I've always, and the staff understand, and the faculty, that even one class and a student stops, that's 1,050, 1,500 if you're a grad level student. That's out of your savings, or you've taken out loans for that, and you've gotten really nowhere other than some applicable information, from that one course into your workplace. That's great, but it's still not getting you to that goal where you can make a higher salary, earn a higher salary, and have more disposable income. That is what we're here to do, and to really help facilitate the progress of each of our students. We look at their salaries as a graduating cohort every single year to ensure that there's an upward trajectory of their salaries. And we see 3 years before they graduated where they were as a cohort, and year 0 when they graduated. And we love that we can see that the trajectory is still upward trending, and feel really good about having that strong impact on those graduating cohorts and their families.
That's got to be rewarding for sure. But let's talk a little bit about different career paths. That's your whole focus, is to make sure that you are taking industry needs and have students and non-traditional, modern students, as you so lovingly called it now, and making sure that you're giving them the right education to apply to their future careers. But you've got some interesting people that you've worked with to see where your credits go. If you don't mind touching on that for me, because that was surprising to hear. Yeah.
So all of our programs are very intentionally identified for workplace success, for living wages. And so we only have 25 different degree programs, but they're very clearly aligned with where the growth is in industry, where upward trajectories are for salaries and demand for jobs. Even in, we expect a recession here at some point. We've been on this great bull market, but as we look at the future, where is there going to continue to be demand? And then those are the areas that we're providing certificate programs or degrees. And as we identify those areas, we then pull together industry leaders to work with our faculty to identify the learning outcomes so that they're solely not theoretically based. They are with consideration of what are the industry needs, so that we can have this very practical education, but also a very high-level academic education, so that the students are getting both the strong critical thinking, decision-making, but decision-making within the context of work, not just based on a research study, perhaps. That we expect that what they learn today, truly, that tomorrow, if something happens in their workplace, that they can apply that they can do that and do it with confidence. And so we are working with those program advisory members, with our faculty. We develop those outcomes, and then the curriculum itself is created that same way. Assignments are embedded. If we have a healthcare degree, for instance, it talks about a hospital setting and some decision making that needs to go there with data, reports that you would normally see if you were in that setting, and how you would make that decision and have that discussion with your peers about the outcomes and what you're trying to achieve. And our faculty, 92% have industry experience in their areas of expertise, their PhDs, doctorates, but they are working professionals too. And so that all comes together with a program that industry appreciates and identifies as really strong in terms of the outcomes that they see from our students that are their employees. We survey them every year to ensure that that's in fact happening. And then to take that one step, the next step is to actually look at the learning outcomes of their businesses, their companies, and say, well, they're learning these type of things in their own training programs. What are those outcomes, and do they align with outcomes from the coursework that we're teaching? And oftentimes they do, or we can work with those organizations to enhance their training so that we can transfer it in for college credit at the bachelor's degree level, particularly. When you think about 120 credits and you think about somebody that is maybe a 35-year-old mother who has been working as a supervisor or a manager or maybe even a director without a bachelor's degree, there are a lot of skills that she has in terms of knowing how to manage people. So we provide pathways for that we can in fact transfer maybe what she did in some sort of formal training program in her while she was working. Can we transfer that? Does that actually match to the learning outcomes of coursework so that we don't make her retake Management 300, which is very basic.
Great. I want to underline this part of what you're saying here, because not a lot of colleges, if any, do that.
It is because it takes this very close work with the faculty to be very clear on what are those learning outcomes and how are we measuring them. And then when we look at this corporate type training, what are those outcomes? How are they measured? And are they equal? And if they are, why would we not save that student time and money and help them move forward? Because what that person is then going to do if they maybe graduate from their certificate program or their degree program is they're going to keep on learning, because the next thing down the road is robotics, AI, machine learning. There is this whole nother world that is quickly coming, and with a whole different set of skill set that they're going to need as they become that senior level leader. And so in the world of lifelong learning, we see it as this one big pool. And how do we make learning matter? Whether you learned it from us or a different institution, on the job, through the military, through the police academy, we embrace that learning. We understand it's real learning, and we do our best, and the faculty understand that level of work, but it takes teams of faculty. And you can imagine the expense of that. We pay our faculty for all the work that they do. We do not have tenure, but we pay them to serve on committees. We pay them to do these reviews on committee work for articulation of credit of learning. They serve as program coordinators. We have full-time faculty that help us manage and lead the faculty and the university. But in terms of the over 500 part-time faculty that we have, they are serving as content experts, as reviewers of courses, on the committee work, as I mentioned, helping us work on policy. We embrace them. We love our faculty because we are all working together to the outcomes that we've identified. And so if a faculty member is not interested in a certain type of committee or work, or really likes teaching but not curriculum, they don't have to do both. They can teach and they are compensated, but if they are interested in working on curriculum and have the doctorate or the PhD that we need to help us create it, we embrace that and bring them in. So it is this really collaborative workplace that we have at CSU Global, and most of them are virtual. We do have some in the office, but we have a very flexible work schedule. People can work remote, they can work on site, they get to choose how that works with their managers. But we know how to use video technology, so all of our meetings include people from around the US, the world, who video into the meetings and are right there with them. So we have adapted as we expect our students to the new world. And how do you manage talent and growth and contribution in a way that's meaningful to people that are participating in it?
Yes. And speaking of the new world, one of the things that you guys have is a cybersecurity program, right?
Yes.
Very exciting stuff. If you do you mind telling me a little bit about that program?
Yes, cybersecurity is continuing, of course, to be big demand across the world. We work with universities around the world in other countries, the Middle East, China, to help them as well. And the biggest demand, of course, is this area of cybersecurity. We are now taking that program. We're going one extra step, which is to have them really work intentionally with marketing to help ensure that we are capturing those that need to be upskilled in a way that they will recognize it is not just the traditional higher or university level curriculum, but that it in fact embeds tools that you use in industry, that it has outcomes and certifications of industry. So very aligned. At the same time, they are writing research papers using APA style where that's appropriate, and then using simulations in a workplace environment with, again, the tools that they need to know how to use in order to be successful. And so we recently partnered with the Colorado Business Roundtable on a panel that was very well attended. The experts that you all were able to help us bring in were phenomenal, and we are planning a bigger breakfast event. I believe it's going to be breakfast, but in the fall, and I know that our marketing director is leading that himself because we understand the potential to be able to serve our community in Colorado with this great offering, and you brought experts in from around the world. And so we felt like we needed to do a much better job sharing that in the community. And so we are going to have a repeat. We just had that in the spring, and I said, with that kind of talent and that kind of knowledge and sharing and their expertise, that we need to do a better job with CSU-Global on expanding the event, which we will help cover the logistics of that, so that we can open that up for all leadership in Colorado who are interested in participating. So thank you.
Yes, that was that. I actually attended that event as well. It was amazing.
Yeah,
I learned a lot that day. It was almost scary what I learned that day, but it was full of information, right, that people should know, and a lot of us don't.
No, but it was also very digestible.
Yes.
I may run a fully online institution that's all run by technology, and my team will tell you I'm probably the least technical out of all of them, but I could understand. And from that, we actually have now added the cloud and cybersecurity into our compliance area. And I just sent him off. He just got back last week.
Yeah.
He went to a full week's training on what could that look like and how do we assess risk, just as was discussed by that panel.
Yeah.
There's a cost. You can't cover every area of risk. So how do you balance? How do you measure? And how do you determine how much you should cover? Anyway, it was very practical.
It was very practical.
Great experts.
I love that you implemented it right away, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, real quick, so excited for you. You said that you are having your 10-year anniversary. CSU-Global is having their 10-year anniversary on September 1st this year, yeah?
Yes, September 1 will be it, and we look forward to the relaunch of the institution, by the way, will be happening this year by June, so a year from now, that we will have CSU Global 2.0, a full relaunch of the university. So more to come, much more to come.
Absolutely. Check out csuglobal.edu for more. Check out this podcast and more at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here. Thank you so much, Becky. It's been great having you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the great questions that I could share.
Of course.